Style of cinema, created by she, her, continued by he, him. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand. Hey, and wonderful. As you see on your screen, your dial, however you are choosing to join me today, I apologize for the content that's going to follow, because it will be garbage. All of my shows are garbage, in case you haven't figured that out yet. Anyway, second part. I told you we were going to go down the rabbit hole of a 7-part series. 7-part series. Why am I going to do 7? Well, because I find it rather lazy of the people that request these films from distributors, and then they'll get a box set. And they'll either write, 3 or 4 paragraphs about 3 movies, or in this case, I saw a couple articles where it was 3 or 4 paragraphs about 7 movies. And, well, I just think that's lazy. So we are going to do 1 by fucking 1 on this box set. The box set, if you didn't listen to the first show, he came from the swamp, the William Grefe collection, bringing together 7 of Grefe's most outlandish movies, plus a feature-length documentary on the filmmaker's career. He came from the swamp. The William Grefe collection packs in a menacing menagerie of demented jellyfish men, if you listen to the Sting of Death podcast. Zombified witch doctors, which is the one that we are going to do right meow. Homicidal hippies and seductive matrons, not to mention the ubiquitous go-go dancing to create one of the most wildly entertaining box sets of all time. So, as you see on your screen, your dial, however you should not be joining me today, The Death Curse of Tartu. The Death Curse of Tartu. I believe this was 67, 68, thereabouts, 60s. So for all you youngins, if you decide to buy this box set or stream it first on Tubi, you're going to have to do a lot of forgiving. A lot of toxicity that exists amongst some of these films. Different time. It's not going to pull me out of it, I tell you. Not going to pull me out of it. What do we got here? We got Death of Tartu is starring Fred Pinero, who plays Ed Tyson. Babette Sherrill. Babette, only the 60s. Could you have a name of Babette? Who plays Julie Tyson. Bill Marcus, who plays Billy. Mayra Gomez Kemp, who plays Cindy. Sherman Hayes, who plays Johnny. Gary Holtz as Tommy. Maurice Stewart as Joanne. And, of course, Doug Hobart, who played the Jellyfish Man in Sting of Death, also plays Tartu. So it starts out with what's funny is if you read the back of the Blu-ray disc here, it says a group of archaeology students on an expedition into the Everglades unwittingly. There's no unwittingly about it. They know exactly where they're going and what they're doing. Unwittingly disturbed the burial ground of a 400-year-old witch doctor by the name of Tartu. Wait for it. Whose desiccated corpse has the power to transform itself into a variety of deadly animals. This is another fun one. I'm going to keep these episodes really short because I am doing 7 of them, so we'll try to keep it relatively short. I told myself I was only going to do 10-15 minutes per, and I think Sting of Death was 30, so we're off to a great start. Anyway, starts out with a man, 2 men, one of them Indian, traveling down the Everglades via canoe, and they roll up to a spot, and of course the white man, I can't remember if his name was Ken or something like that. Sounds like a white name. Is it Ken? Let's find it now, kid. Your writing is so small. And who the fuck knows? Anyway, a white man's like, hey, let's go. And the Indian says, nope. My family has heard telltale of this land being cursed for many a generation. You go on now and be white by yourself and go ahead and explore. And well, it starts off the way that you think it would be. He gets to the burial ground, and within no time whatsoever, what is his name? Mr. Gunter, maybe? He treks along the forest. I just want to say, so some of these in the William Grefe box set, the films that I've watched, boy, so back in the day, old Hollywood, there was a lot of long-running shots, and it just made sense. If the cameras are the size of a fucking house, you don't want to keep repositioning them and blah, blah, blah. So the tendency was to let these takes try to go as long as they can. And if you listen to the Sting of Death podcast, I mean, there was go-go dancing for fucking 4 straight minutes. And it was so uncomfortably white, I was starting to feel racist towards, like black people and Asians and shit. I was like, you know what? Time to get that Confederate flag up in the back of your truck, in the back of your Hemi. No, I'm just kidding. But it was getting uncomfortably white for me. And it's Death Curse of Tartu. We really let the takes run. So, like, even in the opening sequence here where Mr. Gunter, I think his name is, who is traveling to the burial ground, that trek sequence where he's kind of like walking along the edge of the water and everything, it's like 3 minutes long. It's got some pretty rough music too. In fact, throughout, and again, like, look, this is old school filmmaking. They didn't have, if you didn't listen to the first podcast, so William Grefe kind of did his own thing. Like, he didn't. This wasn't produced by Sony or Columbia or, this, in fact, it was kind of wild for Grefe to be doing what he was doing during this time where he was just like, no, man, I bought the equipment. I'm going to go do this shit myself and I'm going to sell it myself. And if memory serves, some of the bonus features, I had learned that basically it was kind of locational. So they would just show them in Florida. Like the first 3 films, I believe, in the box set, all take place in the Everglades, around the Everglades, and they would just show these films. They would double bill them almost exclusively in Florida. So it's not like you would be seeing these in rural Kentucky or something like that. It was made specifically for the location, and I admire that to a certain degree. That just kind of like, well, fuck it, I'm not going to deal with big budget studios who want to control the rights to this, that, or the other thing and kind of ruin my product or drive up the prices for, clearance to do certain things, whether it be gunshots, squibs, but anyway, so I tend to forgive sequences where I even where the score is in Tartu, a lot of the score is the beating drums and chants of Indians. Like, it is throughout the entire film. And for someone who is very forgiving, by the time we reach that 40-50 mark and I'm hearing another 2.5 minutes of drums pounding and chants, holy man. I'm pretty sure that was the only thing I could make out was holy man amongst the chants. But I was actually watching this with my chick who was doing her own art, and I see her peeking up just kind of like, I don't know if it was because of the chants or anything or because of the outlandishness that was taking place on the screen, but I think she even got to the point where it's just like, Jesus Christ, like, we got the chance, pal. We got the fucking chance. Anyway, so there's like a 3.5 minute fucking trekking scene. Sees a skull, which obviously indicates that we have reached the burial ground, and then if you couple it with the music that has changed from chants and shit to now ominous, you know that something evil might be afoot. Something evil might be afoot, but that doesn't stop Gunter from setting up his camp. And I believe there's another 2.5 minutes of trekking through the forest, and he hasn't been there but 2 seconds, and he immediately finds some bones that he stumbles across, which, judging from how quick you see them, dinosaur, gator, anyway, I started giggling. Gunter finds a rock of some sort, or a piece of earth, we'll just say. It's unclear what it is, but there's writing on the rock. And wouldn't you know it, as he's staring at it, you start to hear the drums pounding and the chants begin. And we get our first look at Tartu. Tartu in his tomb, surrounded by snakes. At first, I thought it was a zombie, and then I thought it was a mummy. And then, of course, when I did my research after the fact, it was neither. It was a witch doctor who's apparently dead, but not dead. I don't know. But he is in a sarcophagus, so. And as aforementioned, Tartu doesn't want anybody. Tartu does not want anybody on his goddamn burial ground. Leave me the fuck alone. You know, and it's unclear why. Maybe I just overlooked it, and like I said, I didn't say it in this one, but the last podcast, I can honestly tell you, my friends, watching stuff has lost its fun. I believe it or not, I don't like to work my day job and then come home and immediately sit in front of a screen and watch movies. Well, that's what you do. You go home and relax. Yeah, but you're not relaxing if you have to watch it with a critical eye. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes, and I take very little notes because I'm typically all right in talking on the fly unless I had Uncle Eddie over, if you get that joke, if you get that drug joke. Unless I have Uncle Eddie over, talking isn't, it's whatever. It's for good or ill, I can spin some webs. But it's... I don't always want to work a 10-hour shift and then come home and watch an hour-and-a-half movie about a vengeful jellyfish man. Now here's the thing. That's fun. That is fun. I just think I think I just need to take a long break, and it's coming. Just members of the audience, in case you're like, it's coming. Like I don't know if it's going to be half a year. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But the end is near. Because it's too much, and if I'm not having fun, well, then it's going to come out on the podcast, and you're going to be bored, and then, we get to the point, like, what are we doing here, right? So, sometimes it's hard to come home and watch this with a very open mind. In fact, I felt, because I did Sting of Death and Death Curse of Tartu back to back on that particular day, I think I was just burnt out, so I was hanging on little things that I normally wouldn't, like the trekking through the fucking forest for 4 minutes, or how quickly he finds the bones that automatically upset Tartu in the burial ground. It just, because here's the thing, like these movies, I'm through 4 of 7 of them now. This is the second installment of this 7-part series. They're really fun comfort food movies, like stuff that you can throw on in the background and do this, that, or the other thing, and occasionally look up and kind of go, look at that, that's silly. But they are, at least now. I mean, at the time, you got to understand just how, like, it's not easy to lug a shitload of cameras from the movie cameras, film cameras, and a film crew in the 60s across the Everglades to shoot a movie. Like that it doesn't go unnoticed for me, Like I may rib the movie for what it is here and there, but I will never, ever, ever on this show rib the effort when making any film, let alone if, it's something like this in the 60s, where the elements definitely come into play when you're shooting in the Everglades. And I mean, sometimes you can see it, like the film that I'll talk about next time, The Hook Generation. There are so many shots where, like, we're meant to be seeing it in real time, so to speak, but like the group of criminals in the cabin, it's clearly dark as fuck out, but they're looking at this airplane flying overhead, and it's clearly light out. When the airplane, like when they cut to the shot of the airplane flying overhead, it's definitely kind of light out, and you're just kind of like, so what's going. Anyway, that'll be the next show. But so I was perhaps a little unfair in how I watched the Death Curse of Tartu. But anyway, as aforementioned, Tartu turns into creatures. He turns into creatures. And of course, since Mr. Gunter has found the rock with the tribal writings on it, the archaic writings on it, well, Tartu awakens and he turns into a goddamn snake and kills Mr. Gunter. Now, I don't usually spoil things, but I do want you to take a close look at the Snake Mr. Gunter fight sequence. Snake Mr. Gunter fight sequence. I'm pretty sure that's a real fucking snake. A real giant-ass boa constrictor that he's fighting with. I'm almost positive. And there was a couple times where I was like, this is fucked up. And now, Mr. Gunter is definitely playing up the Frank Weed. I think the guy who plays Mr. Gunter, Frank Weed, Sam Gunter, I believe he was the animal specialist for this film. So it's kind of funny to see him, sell the snake fight sequence. However, it does not make it any. It is such a perplexing thing to watch. Like, on the one hand, you're terrified of this human being that is definitely wrapped up in this boa constrictor right now. And then you're laughing at kind of how he is choosing to move around with the snake as he's quote-unquote being attacked. It's a really wild and perplexing sequence to watch because you're kind of like, this is terrifying, hilarious, and weird at the same time. But anyway, Mr. Gunter meets his end. I believe now we meet Ed, Julie, Billy, Cindy, Johnny, Tommy, Joanne. Only two will survive. Who will the two be? Anyway, they're back at the camp, and the group of six. It's so funny because Ed, Air Force Ed, as I started calling him midway through the film, because I don't know, he made like a statement earlier in the film where he's just like, I didn't go in the Air Force for 4 years to get the dickens scared out of me just because I went out in the Everglades by myself. I don't think he mentions being in the Air Force, but I think the rest of what I just said was nonsense. But so I don't know why, but in my head for the rest of the film, I started calling him Air Force Eddie. So, Jesus, to watch movies with me is something else. Or just if you could see what happens in my head as I watch movies, you would be like, that's fucking exhausting. I'm here to tell you, I fucking agree with you. It's so exhausting. Anyway, when Ed gets to the camp, he talks to the Indian from the beginning. And I believe his name's Billy, played by Bill Marcus. He talks to the Indian. He's like, oh, no, Mr. Gunter went out. And Ed's like, well, why the fuck didn't you stay with him? He's like, no. I'll tell you the same thing I told him. I'm superstitious, and I ain't going. And I ain't going with you either. And as he's telling him about this curse or I think he tells him a story about how the Indian, Billy, hasn't gone out there ever since somebody, I forget if it was campers or somebody was murdered by a tiger. And since tigers don't exist in the Everglades, he was like, nope, I'm not going to the burial ground. I'm fucking out. I want nothing to do with that. So, Ed's talking to him, and basically, typical fucking old white man bullshit. As Billy's telling Ed, the story about the tiger and everything, he's like, all right, well, I don't want you to tell the fucking 6 other guests, my 4 other guests, because, I don't want them getting startled or anything. So Ed's a piece of garbage, even though Ed makes it to the end, spoiler alert, because this is a movie from the 60s. Typically, our main characters always make it. Typical fucking white male bullshit. He's just like, oh, no, I'm not going to tell him. So we'll wait until we're in the thick of it and shit starts to hit the fan, and then I'll be like, oh, yeah, so I should have mentioned that this is an ancient burial ground, and there's like some 400-year-old curse, and the guy's name's Tartu and shit. But who really believes that? And he does do that. I mean, so once the group officially gets to the burial ground and they see the same skull that Gunter did, and whatever, and he's just like, you don't believe in this Ed's like, you don't believe in this superstition, do you? I mean, come on. You can't be a scientist and believe in this mumbo jumbo of the curse of the death curse of Tartu. Okay, so I don't want to ruin too much. I will say there is an amazingly hilarious sequence where one of the guests die. Let me see who it was. Doesn't want to spook them. Naturally, they're white, so they carry on. Oh, yeah, a shit ton of white people in this film, as the last couple, Air Force Ed and wife, do the same. Oh, so I love the old movies because you get to laugh at some of the audacity of some of the characters. So when they first, the group now, when they first see that skull, when they get to the burial ground, everyone with the exception of Ed is freaked the fuck out. We don't want to go further. This is bullshit. Some of us want to turn back right now. And of course, Ed's like, I'm from the Air Force. You're not going anywhere. We'll be fine. And like literally like 2 minutes later, now the Ed and Julie are, I guess, are the mom and dad of the group, even though the archaeologists that came with them of no relation. They're there for about 2 minutes, and they just got done complaining about how creepy everything is. And I believe Johnny comes out and says, "Hey, do you mind if me, Johnny, Tommy? Do you mind if me, Tommy, Joanne, and Cindy all go make a fire somewhere not here?" And Ed's already got like a fire in a camp made, and he's like, "Well, what's wrong with this one?" We want to go necking. So I'm just laughing at the audacity of that, because you were just scared shitless 2 minutes ago from being on a burial ground. Now you want to go necking somewhere in the woods without the only man who seems to have a set of balls on him. I was like, oh, what are you doing? Someone's about to get murdered. And guess what? 2 of the couple get murdered. They're in the Everglades, right? Yeah, well, 2 of them fall into the water, and it's all well and fine, but somehow falling into the water wakes up Tartu. And we don't want to wake up Tartu, okay? Because when Tartu wakes up, people die. But nobody ever sees the culprit, because Tartu turns into creatures. And in this particular case, I believe he turned into a mako shark, or a shark of some sense. But you can't have a shark in fresh water in the Everglades. Are you nuts? Yes, but this is the death curse of Tartu. And I was laughing. So when Tommy and I think it's Tommy and Joanne meet their demise, it's stock footage of a shark intercut with them flailing in the water. And, you know, just old school filmmaking, because I can get behind the idea. Like, sometimes, look, the execution of an idea is going to fall flat on its face. It's inevitable. It's not going to be perfect in every single film. Obviously, when you're trekking out in the middle of the fucking Everglades with, you know, $1 million worth of cameras, you know, you can only do so much. And, you know, it was fun. It was fun. Why not use the stock footage? Jaws did it. Jaws used stock footage. That's not a fucking real shark flipping on that cage. That's not Bruce the shark flipping on that cage. That's stock footage, baby. Or a couple of the shots where you see the harpoon had went into the neck. Stock footage, baby. So yeah, a couple of our archaeological campers meet their demise in the Everglades due to a shark. And I urge you to watch, again, this is free on Tubi if you are too scared to pull the trigger on the physical copy before you see it. I understand that. What, you're going to drop $50 to $80 on a 8-film box set? Well, 7-film, 1 documentary box set for movies that, you know, are older than some of your parents? No, probably not. But I urge you to take comfort in just how fun it is, because I was laughing. Like, yeah, they're dying and everything, but I was laughing and having a good time. I was feeling enjoyment, and my chick who popped her head up from her artwork occasionally, she was even giggling herself. She's just like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, I know, right? But it's fun. It's fucking fun, dude. And, well, the show must go on. But I think what's even more hilarious is when Ed, Julie, and I believe now the remaining Johnny and Cindy, The way that they watch their friends die is infuriating. It's infuriating. First of all, when Ed arrives on the scene, so of course, the kids went, down the way, and Ed and Julie hear screaming coming from the distance. Of course, they, go to the rescue, and Ed fires off like 2 rifle shots at his friend who's apparently being attacked by the shark. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. The shark's moving so fast like that. How sharks do. They flip their prey around sometimes, depending on the size of the prey. They'll actually flip and roll, much like a gator sometimes. And Ed's just firing off shots. I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you concerned for fucking Tommy right now? Like, you could have hit Tommy with some of those shots. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is he immediately stops and they just stare. Their friend, like, they just, like, all the screaming and stuff stops, and they're just like, well, shouldn't have went into the Everglades now, should you? Never know what's gonna pop up and bite you. It was just, I don't know, like, we went from such one extreme to him firing off shells at a shark, and then in the next moment he's just like, well, and Tommy's still dying. Tommy and Joanne are still getting fucked up, but there's this look on everyone's face that, like, well, there's nothing we can do. Like, it almost looks like they're about ready to leave as their friends are still in the process of being murdered. It's just like, well, we can't do anything. Looks like the Glades got them. It's just, again, I don't know how you can't laugh at that and have a good time with it. So, but anyway, so Tartu turns into creatures. You're going to have to tune in to find out more. I said I was going to do fucking 10 minutes per one of these. And what do you know? We are not at 10 minutes now, are we? I can tell you, I had a good time. Start to finish, I had a good time. Obviously, I mean, again, I probably shouldn't have watched them back to back after 2 10-hour shifts at my day job, because the thumping of the drums and the chanting definitely was starting to get to me at points in the film. However, had I not worked 10 hours and listened to the general public call me a cunt and a piece of shit for this, that, or worse, racist for this, that, and the other thing, well, then maybe the drums and the chanting wouldn't have been too much for me. So, but not the case. Anyway, this is the second installment of my 7-part series of the William Grefe series. He Came from the Swamp. The William Grefe collection, available now through Arrow Video. Tons of fucking bonus features, commentaries with Frank Henenlotter, who I fucking love, and William Grefe. And it's available now. And like I said, if you're one of those people that's like, hey, I'm not going to drop $70 on first of all, I hate physical media. Well, if you do, you probably shouldn't listen to this fucking show. But I understand that if you do like physical media and you don't want to drop $70 without seeing some of these films, I completely understand. That's why they're on Tubi right now. I don't think many of these films are over an hour and 35 minutes, so no excuse. The Death Curse of Tartu. Ellis Cinema. Arrow Video. He Came from the Swamp. The William Grefe collection. Part 2 of the series. The Death Curse of Tartu. Not done yet. I would really like to keep these companies in business as long as possible. I love physical media. Arrow Video, arguably amongst the best. I would say that Criterion and our Arrow are tied. They make the best shit. Alright, Ellis Cinema, Arrow Video, Death Curse of Tartu. Here we go.